Lois's black mink coat transformed into a throw.
Hi, the next project up is this beautiful black mink coat. It is nice, soft, and supple. It has a black lining on the inside, but we're not going to be using this one, although we'll be using a black satin. And what I really like about the inside of this particular lining is they added this really nice trim that goes around the edge, and it just added a little pop to the inside of the coat. The back side of the coat also looks great. There are no tears anywhere. So I'm excited about doing this one. Let's get started.
So here I'm removing the lining. This is always a very tedious part of the process. Once the lining is removed, I can then start removing things like shoulder pads, the support material, other pieces of satin that are also there to protect the fur. Once all the supportive material is removed, I can then start taking apart the fur. I usually start with the collar area and then work down to the sleeve, which is what I'm doing here. Slitting the sleeve down the center and constantly vacuuming and picking up anything that might be in the way. Flying fur is always an issue. Continuing with the other sleeve area, following the same procedure, opening up the cuffs and then slitting it down the center so I get a nice wide piece of fur to use. I remove the cuff and that makes the area on the bottom also bigger because it releases all the fur. Now I'm removing the collar. Once that's done, I lay the fur out. I want to see whether or not I'm going to have to make strips or if I can mitigate the flare at the bottom. I decided to make strips with this particular fur, marking out the straight areas. I use a wax pencil for that. And straightening out the bottom and the top. Once all the strips are made, I lay them out and then I make additional strips for the bottom. And I make those additional strips with any leftover strips. Then I go to the fur machine and I sew the pieces together. Smooth it out. Make sure it's all nice and straight. And and layer the two pieces of fur together, and I clip them along the way. And of course, back to the fur machine. Once all the pieces are together, and this particular fur is fairly straight and even, I'm going to pin them down and stretch them out so the quilt or the fur piece is laying nice and flat. And even, and now I'm going to take my long ruler and I'm going to mark the edge at the bottom. Cut that all out. And now I can begin working on the border area, which is what I'm doing here. I'm attaching the borders to the bottom and then to the top of the fur. Finding the center position. And that's what it looks like. Once the pieces are layered together, and this is the bottom part of the quilt, the backing, I then sew the opening up after I have turned the fur out, and that's done by hand. The rest of this process is all done by hand. I use the clips around the edge to keep the quilt flat, or the throw, not the quilt. I used a pre-waxed thread, which makes this process much easier. Once that hole is closed up, I now tack down the fur, and I do my running stitches along the quilting line so it's nice and straight, and the tack down stitches help give the fur strength and stability. Also done by hand. The backing is a plain black satin that the customer chose, and the quilting design I used on this particular fur was the wave design. It looks really pretty when it's finished. Once the last stitch is made, I turn the fur over, look for any bumps that may appear after it's been tacked down. It looks pretty good. Take a photograph, do my measurements, and then I look again at the back. Fold it up and it's ready for the customer. It measured 48 inches by 53 inches. What a great project this was. Come visit us at dinahsquilts.com.